It's another person talking about emotional intelligence. Like, what does that even mean? And why is this becoming such a buzzword these days? If you've been thinking that, then you're not too far from me and what I've been experiencing in the corporate world and in entrepreneurship. The term emotional intelligence is definitely something that people are throwing in there in their marketing, in their sales, in this corporate culture to foster, deeper relationships, better work culture. And it's definitely a term that I think a lot of people might get a little turned off from because of the fact that it's such a buzzword, and maybe because of a sort of a vague meaning behind it. But to me, this term of emotional intelligence means a lot more than that. And in this video, I will talk about what my experience is so far and why I'm interested in this topic and why it's more than just a buzzword.
I cue my intro animation that I don't have, so we're just gonna get into it.
So emotional intelligence is something that I've become a lot more interested in recently. After having worked about half a decade in technology consulting, and though I really appreciated that experience and learned so much from being in that world, I noticed that more and more as I interact with people, not just in the workplace, but within, everyone else around me, within my own personal life and within my own romantic relationships, and just people in general seem to have lacked this ability to truly communicate what it is that they're feeling. And that got in the way of really being able to address the problem, the root of the problem at hand. So for example, in my workplace, there were a lot of different moving pieces within the business, within our, I was a product manager at Accenture, and there were so many competing priorities between different teams. And without us really getting down to the actual needs and wants and requirements of what we wanted out of our teams, there seemed to be a lot of siloed conversations that were happening, and we were ending up addressing things that weren't really addressing anything. And I didn't know it was called this before, but this emotional intelligence was something I noticed was lacking in our teams and in the workplace. And the argument there is you don't want to be bringing emotions into work, right? You don't want to talk about feelings and whatnot in the workplace. And that totally makes sense, right? Like, you don't want your emotions and personal feelings to get in the way of being productive. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we can't completely ignore them, because whether you like it or not, we are social emotional beings, and we have emotions, we feel things. And no matter how professional you try to be or how, perfect or productive you want to be, emotions still play a big role in how you think and perceive and behave in whatever you do. I'm happy to see that people are becoming a lot more accepting around this idea of not necessarily, bringing emotions into the workplace, but realizing that it's there and learning how to manage them in a way that is productive for us rather than detrimental or harmful. And this whole thing got me interested in my own emotional intelligence. It got me thinking and introspecting a lot more about how much that's been missing within my own life as well. Having an understanding of how we're feeling and being able to really identify that will allow us to sort of let go of this outer mask, this sort of armor that we put up around ourselves, as we adults, which is very important as well. You don't want to be roaming around being completely vulnerable to everything. It's also just as important to develop a thick skin in that way. But the point of emotional intelligence is learning when to fully enact that and when to let yourself be vulnerable in order to develop something deeper in yourself and in your relationships. That's why so many of us start feeling like we are constantly stressed all the time, or always feeling anxiety or worry or unfulfillments within our lives, because we were never taught this. I mean, if anything, we are taught the opposite, at least in my case, where you have to kind of suppress it in a way, or avoid all the negative feelings and whatnot, or not to show any weakness, or to not be sensitive or emotional. And this level of avoidance or ignorance of something that is such a huge part of our minds and bodies, something that we can't necessarily completely get rid of. This avoidance of it is dangerous, is unhealthy, because when we are, disconnected from how we feel internally and how we express that, there's naturally then a lot of confusion or discrepancies between how you show up in this world. And that's where you get a lot of dishonesty or inauthenticity, or within my case, numbness. How that showed up was this level of complacency in my work, in my relationships, and in my hobbies, and what I even cared about in this world. I was really only getting one dimension of the human experience by staying at that neutral level. This is why I think emotional intelligence is more than just a buzzword, because if we can learn to become smarter with our emotions, then we can create more spaces for us to feel safe, to maximize the certain set of emotions that we'd love to have more within our life, which is different for everybody, right? And it is unfortunate that people are using it almost obsessively or too much, to the point where it does sound like it's just another buzzword or another thing to spread among people. But it is one of those things where it is going to mean something different to everyone, and you can decide what aspects you want to take out of it, what works for you and what doesn't. That all does come with a lot of self-awareness and introspection and understanding of how and why our emotions work the way they do. You're the only one that can be an expert on that. You're the only one that can be intelligent about your own emotions. So hopefully this clears up a little bit of what this phrase or this term is for you. It's a topic that I'm completely fascinated and passionate about, and we'll start talking a lot more about what EQ is, or how to improve it, and go through all the different tools in order to really improve it within ourselves as well, within this channel. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But more importantly, if there is someone who you think could benefit from this, don't hesitate to share this with them personally. Thank you for watching this, and I'm glad you're here wanting to learn more about EQ, and I will catch you next time.